Hey guys, Boone down south here. Today we're going to take a look at how I self-film my deer hunts. And really, I've gone through quite an evolution of moving up in the ranks, and I'm by no means a professional at all, but I've been getting a little better at it. There's a lot to this self-filming your hunt. It takes your hunting to a whole nother level. But I just kind of want to go over the iteration that I've gone through so I can kind of share some stuff with you, not to waste your time on and things like that, and show you what I've come to. And I've got a thing that works pretty good for me now, but it's still tough. So I'm going to talk about the tips and tricks that I've been using, the gotchas that get me a lot of the time and so forth, and the equipment I'm using, and just kind of try to help you out if you want to self-film your deer hunts and have at least some good video footage. So hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned. Okay guys, so here's the thing. When I started this, I thought, hey man, it'll be really cool to film my deer hunt. And so the easy thing is a GoPro. I already had a GoPro, I use it for fishing videos. And so actually it's a E4K that I started with. This little E4K here that I got several years ago. And actually it does some really good quality video for the price of this thing. It's pretty cool. And you can also use your voice to talk to it. But here's the deal with this, guys. I started off by mounting this on my compound bow. I put it on a stabilizer. And my daughter made this little knit, or crocheted little camo around it so it wasn't white, and it fit right on my stabilizer. So, when I'm drawing that bow, it's pointing right at the game that I'm looking at, okay? And then, I had some shoulder surgeries and kind of switched over to crossbow, and then I got a mount like this right here. Bought one of these. This mounts on my scope, and then I mount the GoPro on top of that. So again, it's facing what I'm pointing at. But the problem is, these GoPros, they're made with wide angle lenses, and although you can adjust how wide it is, even on the narrowest setting, and I'll play some video footage here, some shots that I filmed with the GoPro, and what you're gonna find out is even though this deer is only 12 yards away, it's gonna be this big in the picture frame, because that wide angle lens just makes everything so big and everything so far away. I'll play a couple different shots. I think I've got one where I shot one from a tree stand at 12 yards, and I think I got some other video footage here where I was hunting from the ground, and a ground blind set up, and I had deer walking in front of me at again, 10, 12 yards, and they are so small in the video footage. And that's when I realized the GoPro just does not cut it. I've also tried using my iPhone, especially with the newer phones. I got 3x zoom capability, and I have filmed some stuff from a blind with my iPhone, and I have filmed some deer when I'm in the stand. If I wasn't gonna shoot them, I'd pull out the iPhone, but it's, it's kind of awkward, you pulling it out. I have invested in something similar to one of these. I'd put a link to it, but it's just a little thing to clip on here, and same kind of, it mounts your iPhone in there, right? And I had one year, man, I was fiddling that thing, and I had a big buck come in Ohio, and I don't know if it saw me, heard me, whatever, but it blew, and it just took off, and it was just kind of clumsy to do with all that stuff. So I finally realized, because I do photography on the side as like a hobby, right? So I'm used to the differences between short lenses and long lenses and zoom lenses and how they all work and everything, and I realized I got to have something with a zoom capability. I looked into the Tacticam, and that's a model that'll mount on your scope. And again, anything you mount on your scope, it's gonna be fixed, a fixed position. So it's what you're looking at. So if the deer over there, you're gonna have to hold, whether it's a bow or whatever, just if you wanna film, so it's not convenient from that sense, right? So that's when I started doing some research, and I upped my game, and I went with this, the Canon, the Vixia HFG50 last year. This zooms in really great. And I'll play some footage from this thing zooming in, and kind of show you what this does. But this was a game changer. Got an external mic for it. You're going to want one of these to cut down on the wind, because I'm going to take it comes off here and mounts on the top of it, and you tighten it up. You definitely want something like this when you get to this level. You'll notice with the GoPro, you're going to hear that wind when it's out there and everything else. So basically that's the big game changer. But going with the bigger camera, and again, you could use a DSLR if you have one of those with some long lenses to zoom. But you need something to mount it to, because it's not realistic to hold your crossbow, your weapon, and then pull up your video camera. Zoom in, zoom out. That's troublesome. So you got to go a little more than just the video camera, right? So doing my research last year, and I came across this camera mount. It's a HME camera mount, and basically this is not how it came. It just came with this section and this section. And what you have is a hook that's going to go right through this hole here. You screw this, it's like a T cross section that you screw into the tree. You mount this through it, put a wing nut on here that locks against the tree. And then again, you did not have this third piece, you have this piece. So you've got this articulating piece here that your camera mounts on, so you can adjust the angle and move it. So that kind of, number one, even if you put a GoPro on here, that makes it better than mounting right on your scope where you can't move it. You got to point your weapon to it, right? But when you this is low cost. There's a lot more expensive camera arms you can get, okay, first of all. But I didn't want to go all in. The camera was a bit pricey, but outside of that, I didn't want to spend too much money on this. So when I looked at this HME camera mount, one of the things that people said, yeah, it only has 2 legs on it, because some of the camera mounts have 3 like this. Some of the reviews will say 2 is all you need. No way. 2 does not cut it, okay? The only way 2 is going to cut it is if you're in a hunting situation where you're up in a tree stand and there's a tree next to you and you can mount the one arm to that tree and it works for you that way. But when you're up in a tree where you have to mount to the tree you're on, if you don't have that 3rd arm, it is not going to cut it for you. I'm telling you guys, because you're going to mount to the tree back here. You need that camera to be up here, whether you're right or left-handed, you know, so you can access that to turn it and move it. If it's way back here at your shoulder, you can't get to it. And you can kind of see, typical tree stand situation, that would be mounted back here. Your camera would be right here instead of up here. And I got some video clips I'll show you. I just had some 3/4 inch tubing that was very similar, same size, drilled some holes, you know, put this on, third leg on here. This is great, okay? These hooks help me hang stuff and everything else. My biggest problem with HME and this product, because I called them and talked to them and wasn't real thrilled about it. This little hook setup they have here, this little, it's like a cross T, if you will, and then a wing nut. So you get 3 of them, which is great. But, you know, you could easily lose this stuff, leave it in a tree, forget. Like, I'm fixing to take off to Ohio to go on a trip, and I got to go pull all my stuff down to take this because I've got these in all my tree stands on my property here. Take them all down. I wanted some extras. I call, hey, can I just get some extras? And they're like, absolutely not. Can't get them, can't get them. The only way to get the extras is to buy another one, which I just thought was ridiculous. And so, I mean, I thought really out of courtesy, they could have at least sent me a couple more hooks, but I was gladly going to pay for them, but not an offering. So, but anyway, this is a low-cost option. It doesn't give you the smoothest setup because I had to loosen all this stuff up. It was very tight, but it does work. It does work. The panning is pretty smooth. The up and down is a little bit more kludgy. That's one thing. The next thing is, when your camera's sitting over there, let me mount this back up here and kind of slide that back in, lock that down. All right, so your camera's sitting about here, and for me, and I'd love to hear you guys that do this, your recommendations. For me, I found the camera to be in about this position from where I'm sitting is about the best for me. So I'd love to hear some other ideas because again, I'm no expert. I'm still learning this. Every time I go hunting, I learn a little bit more about self-filming. This is popping out here. Look, I'm an older dude. My short range vision is not what it used to be, so I need reader glasses. So if I can kind of make out what's on the screen here and zooming in and zooming out, but right here is a good position. And the thing is, you don't want your hand over here. You know, you got a 10-point coming in, you know, you want to shoot the 10-point, right? And I'm still in that phase that I want to get the film on shot, but I'm just going to tell you right now, if a 10-point comes in and I can't get the camera on it, I'm going to shoot 10-point. That's just the way it is, okay? Some people don't have, or some people have the luxury of passing up on this stuff. I do not. But anyway, so the thing is, I like it right here. So what they do for these kind of cameras, they make something called a land sea cable. That's what this guy is. This is like a $25 cable. Plugs into the camera. I mount this on a piece of my garment on my pants, okay? Just above my knee, about 6-8 inches above my knee, on my thigh, if you will. And this has all the controls. Once I turn that camera on, I can turn it off and on with the slide of this switch right here, which honestly, the slide is not the easiest to work sometimes, but your next option from $25 goes up to several hundred from what I found. But you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can take a photo, and you can record on and off. And you can do it all right here without your hand moving from your lap. All right, let's talk about the next thing. Kind of talked about this camera, the land sea adapter, you know, and that kind of lets you zoom in and zoom out. I'm gonna talk about some tips and tricks in a little bit. Let me just finish going over some of the other things. That really gives you one angle. That's really a shot of the animals, you know, and so you got a little more time to play around with it. If it's some does come in, you're not gonna shoot them, you know, kind of thing, but you almost are a little more under a stress factor of like if a big one comes in, you know. I'm gonna talk about some tips and tricks that I use for that. And one other thing to keep in mind, this camera is not waterproof. So I bought a shower cap. It's big enough to fit over this thing. So I'll put a link that's perfect. I keep it in my bag. If it starts to drizzle, I'll just cover this for now and I have to miss the video. So that's one angle. To get the other angle, the angle of me, okay, my expressions, what I'm doing, etc., that's where the GoPro does come into play. And if you've got one of these GoPros, you can get any kind of mounts. You know, I've got one of these kind of clamp-on mounts right here. You know, I'll put a link to this. These are great. You can mount your GoPros to it. Your typical GoPro setup, I think this is a Hero 7. Typical setup, you know, you can have it pointing at you, whatever, but again, it's a fixed shot. So wherever this is facing, that's what you got. Now, I do a lot of fishing videos, and, you know, I mount this on my chest, and you know, I just wanted some different angles, and that's when, a few years ago, I got the GoPro 360. And this thing is a game changer, especially for fishing videos, but for hunting videos as well. This saved my bacon last year, or the year before, when I first was using this to film. The idea behind this GoPro 360, and this is it, this is something else I'll talk about this. This is also a game changer when it comes to GoPros, both hunting and fishing videos. This 360, it films an entire 360 all around it. Fisheye lens on both sides of the GoPro 360. And this you can mount anywhere. So sometimes I'll mount it on that arm. So it'll be sitting right here, and I'll just have it mounted on the camera arm. Sometimes I will hang it from a tree branch over here. And this is filming 360 degrees. And I'll tell you, when I get the tips and tricks and things you got to learn, because there's a lot, you have to practice with this. You really have to practice self-filming your deer hunts, because there's so much going on. And you don't want to spook the animal, of course, because you still want to try to get that shot if a nice one comes in or something that you want to shoot. And it takes a lot of practice. So I will tell you, I'll put a link to the video. I think it was 2 years ago. I first got this, was getting set up, had it all in the tree, had the Land C cable ready to go. I had it zoomed in and you know, at the right distance, and all of a sudden here come this buck coming through. Now there was an 8-point running on my property, and this is South Carolina, so we don't have huge deer like Ohio, but there was an 8-point I was getting on camera. He was kind of wide, and all of a sudden down below me I see this rack, and he turns and it's wide, and I thought it was him. And in my excitement, you know, I took the safety off the crossbow, and I thought I did turn this camera on by flipping the switch on my Land C cable. I flipped it on, okay? And here I go, and it was just really quick. He turns, and I'm like, he wouldn't stop. I literally had seconds to make the shot. I shot him with a crossbow. He takes off, runs up the hill, and as he runs up the hill, I always hate that, because, you know, you don't want to hit deer to go uphill, because usually you're gonna go down, but you're like, oh no, but it looked like a good hit. And I swing this camera around the tripod to swing where he's at, and the deer stops 20 yards from me, and he's looking right at me, and I've got the camera looking right at him, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna catch him falling over and everything. This is great. And then I looked, and the red light wasn't on, because I never hit record, okay? So I'm like, no, I missed the whole thing, right? Even though it's a wide angle lens, this saved my bacon, because it does film in all 360, and it was able to capture the shot where I made it usable. It wasn't great because it's still small, but you can see where that bolt flew right through that deer with the actual impact, and that deer running. But this caught it because it was filming an entire 360 around. But this films you also. And what's cool about it is when you go to edit footage from that, you can grab your frame, and it could be anywhere you want. And you have the ability to move the frame and pan from there as if somebody was on a camera moving around you. So between this and this, I feel like I got a pretty good setup. Now, this big box here, major game changer when it comes to GoPros. That's true for fishing and for hunting. Basically, especially in cold weather. When I first started playing with these GoPros on hunting trips, and I was mounting them on here, and I'd go to Ohio, these batteries, 20 minutes, maybe. They'd be fully charged, 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I'd hit record, and all of a sudden I'd see the screen go black in a couple minutes. It was so cold, these batteries couldn't handle it. When I'm on fishing trips, they can't handle it, right? They can't handle heat. I'm swapping batteries non-stop. They just don't last. The 360 batteries seem to last longer than your regular GoPros. These GoPros, 7, 8, 9, 10, they seem to have an overheating problem in the summer. And it's a constant battle. So last year, again, I'm just using this one when I'm hunting, the GoPro Max 360. And that battery, you know, I may get 45 minutes, and then I've got to swap the battery. So here I am, you know, more movement, open the hatch up, pull the battery out, put the next battery in, and, you know, just extra movement, and I'm doing that over and over and over. I got to carry a lot of batteries with me. This guy is a game changer. This is basically a battery pack that I can basically flip this lid up here, plug it into my GoPro, and this provides, it claims 7 to 8 hours. So I don't have to have a battery in the GoPro, even in these GoPros, which means it saves on the heating factor, because now it's an empty chamber instead of a battery heating up in there. It still gets hot, but I don't have a battery heating up there. And basically I can run that thing. I never have to swap the batteries. while I'm hunting. It cuts down on the movement, it's great. So highly recommend that when you're doing this. All right, so I want to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I've kind of learned really through practice, and some of the mistakes I've made, and I still make mistakes, okay? Because like I said, this is something that takes practice. You got to get into a routine of doing this, your setup, how you're going to film, how you're going to move the camera, the whole deal. So let's start with the GoPro aspect. If you're going to have a GoPro to film you, on this particular GoPro, if you go with a 360, which I really think this is way better having this than a regular GoPro for this kind of thing, because it does the whole 360 and you can grab whatever at 360 you want. I'll sit up here, I'll turn this thing on, and by the way, when you're using a GoPro hunting, it's different than fishing. Hunting, you want the volume down, you want to set the dim displays, you don't want the lights on, so you want to turn all that off in your settings. You don't want that making any noise, beeps, or anything. So that's number one. So make sure you do that. Number two, this has lens caps. Because it is a fisheye lens, you need to protect that camera when you're carrying it around. And I can't tell you how many times I've done this. I got up in a tree, or even on a fishing trip, and I turned the camera on, I hit record. And I got the red light and it's recording away. An hour later, I'll look, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got that deer to walk by on that one anyway. And I look over, and I left the lens cap on, okay? I'm like, oh, gosh, I can't believe it. I'm like, oh, right? So make sure you take that lens cap off. You know, keep them protected, but you know, once you get ready to record, get that going, okay? The other thing is, none of these cameras are great in low light. And I think really to get the really low light, you're gonna have to go to way more expensive level cameras than I'm willing to pay for. This Canon G50 is supposed to be pretty good in low light, and I've got some low light shots, and I'll link to another video where I shot an 8-point last year or the year before, I forget, when I filmed with this, and it was low light, and it captured everything. But again, these don't do good with low light, so you may not want to turn it on right from the beginning. So usually I'll sit there, wait for it to get a little bit light, then I'll go ahead and turn it on. But you can just go ahead and turn it on, but just more footage you gotta weed through at the end, because it does put out a good bit of footage. Because on the GoPro 360, it does not have the looping function. I really wish GoPro would implement the looping feature here. And if you don't know what the looping feature is, it's really great for fishing. And all of these cameras have it. Even the E4K has it, and this is an old camera here. But looping is where the camera just records for 5 minutes. And as it records for 5 minutes, if you tell it to stop, okay, or you stop the recording rather, then it will save that 5 minutes of recording to your disk, okay, to the SD card. If you don't stop the recording, it'll just continue to overwrite that 5 minutes and overwrite and overwrite and overwrite. So you never have more than 5 minutes of video recorded unless you stop it. And the whole point of that is, you're filming throughout the whole day, you don't want to go through 4 hours of video footage. You just want to go see where you stopped it, and that's where something was on camera just before that. So you can look at that last 5 minute section. That's where the deer came through. That's when you made your shot, right? This does not have that. So you get 8 minute clips at a time on this for the whole time it's running. So if you got 4 hours of video footage, 4 hours of video footage, okay? Which brings me to tip number 2. Set your date and time stamps on all your cameras. When you pop the batteries out, they tend to lose that. Set your date and time stamp. That way, when you got it on this guy, because this guy does not film full time for me. Maybe some people do. Again, I'd love to hear what you guys do. But it's turned on, but it's powered off with this, ready to be turned on. When a deer comes around, or when I think I hear something coming in, I will turn the camera on. I'll start recording. I'll set my zoom distance out wide so I can capture wherever it's coming until I see what's going on. I won't try to zoom in until I know I can. But if you start zoom too tight, you might miss stuff, right? So anyway, set your date and time. That way, on this guy, when you make the shot, it's easy to find the video footage. Now, instead of going through 4 hours of video, look for the right timestamp around that, and it'll be 8 minutes before or after that timestamp, roughly, of where your video's at. So that's a tip to help you with that. As far as other tips for the GoPro, it's not bad also to use that for your voicing, like when you're sitting in a stand talking about what you're doing. Hey, we're doing this today, this is what I'm trying to do, blah, blah, blah. I also use my iPhone for that too. iPhone's great for that. iPhone has great video recording capability, so I'll turn around, reverse the camera, and I'll talk to the iPhone, you know, to do intros and stuff like that. So iPhone's great, but make sure you turn your iPhone volume off too when you're hunting, okay? All right, I guess there is one more tip for this GoPro type stuff. If you don't have this, which I highly, highly recommend, I bought a second one, in fact, just recently, but if you don't have this, that means you're using GoPro batteries. And you can get third-party batteries and all that stuff, and you're gonna need a lot of them. So make sure you have your batteries charged. If you're gonna go on a hunting trip somewhere, make sure you take your chargers with you, because you will have to charge these batteries every day. I've been down that road already until I got this guy, okay? Now I only have to charge that in between hunts. And it charges pretty quick too. But I have gone out with batteries without charge. Second thing, those SD cards. Again, this is filming all day long. You need a big SD card. Get a 256 gig SD card for this. This guy's doing looping, or these guys are doing looping, so you're only getting 5 minutes at a time, so you don't have to have as big of a card, but at least a 64 gig would be ideal. Now, when it comes to running this camera, a couple tips. I got an external audio, which is great improvement over the audio here. This picks up really, really good. In fact, if you watch one of those deer hunts I referenced, you'll hear a dog barking in the background. That dog is hundreds and hundreds of yards away at somebody else's property across the creek, and you're gonna hear that dog nonstop barking the whole time while that deer's walking around in front of me, okay? This thing picks up the noise of the leaves when the deer are walking on. This is great, and it blocks the wind. So external thing is neat. It's battery powered though. I have many times forgot to flip the switch on. If you don't flip the switch on, you're not gonna get your audio, okay? So just remember to do that. Second big tip, when things are coming in, it does get tense, right? Because now it's just not, where do I take my shot? And I gotta be still, and I don't wanna get busted. Now you're fiddling with your camera. And again, you got that control here, but you also wanna move the camera, and you wanna zoom in and look at things. And here's what I've learned to do. Because the one year I zoomed in to where I thought it was, but it was low light, I couldn't tell, my eyes couldn't see it on the screen. I'm just kind of guessing, do I have the deer in the frame or not? And I did barely at the top, okay? But I almost missed it. So hindsight is start out on a wide setting. And that way you'll get the deer in the shot. And you got more leeway as you're moving it around. And then when you have time, then do your zooming in. And I'm just gonna tell you, I just recently watched a YouTube video. I'll try to put a link for it. I think it was Gooch TV. And it was like I don't know how old this kid was, maybe 14. And he was bow hunting somewhere out west. And he killed this monster. And this dude self-filmed this whole thing, what it looks like a DSLR he had set up there on camera. He did the whole thing. He did a fabulous job zooming. It was amazing, way better than I could do. But again, it takes a lot of practice, and got some rain coming in right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover this piece up right now. And you can see how that works. But again, a lot of practice of knowing when to zoom in, when to zoom out, when to move the camera, you know, where you like to set your mounts. It's just something that takes practice, because I continually forget to turn this on, turn that on, or, you know, the deer comes in, things get exciting, and you forget to turn the camera on, or you turn it on and don't hit record. You still got to hit record after you turn it on. So things like that to keep in mind. But this is where I'm at now. With all this stuff, you need something to carry it in the woods. So this pack works ideal for me. And, you know, just you need a pack to carry your mount in, because you're going to different tree stands. You want a slot to put your GoPro in, so I can slide that in here, all set up, if you will. Need something to drop this in, and you want to keep that protected, you know. But I still got room from drink bottle. I got my calls up in here. I can put some other clothing in there, some other items, some food stuff. I got plenty of storage here. Just something to think about, you know, as far as packing this in and out of the woods. Something you do. But basically, that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of wanted to go over all this stuff to show you what I've got. I put links to all this stuff, and hopefully I showed you enough video footage of what I'm doing. But I would love to hear from you guys, what other things you guys are doing, other tips and tricks, because I'm kind of learning this on my own. I don't have anybody, hey, this is what I do kind of thing. And just kind of learning on my own. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and these are things I've learned through my evolution of filming my deer hunts. But it is a lot of fun, and it does bring a whole nother element to it. And you can have a hunt where you see some does, but you'll have another level of satisfaction. Yeah, I got them on video. It was really cool, and his fawn came in, and you know, it's just pretty cool, you know, to capture that stuff and capture your hunts like that. So anyway, hope you got something out of it. Love to hear from you guys on your tips and tricks for this stuff, the stuff that you use, what works for you, what doesn't work. Just put comments down below. We'll see you next time. So if you would, just hit that like and subscribe.